Welcome back everyone to the weekly Mailbox. It's been a while, but we're back to answer your burning questions from the world of Formula 1, Formula E, motorsport, anything in between. As always, I've picked 5 questions from you guys at home, whether that be in the comment section down below, Twitter or Instagram. I've picked 5 of my favourites to answer for this week's episode. However, if you want to be featured for next week or any time in the future, all you've got to do to submit your question is chuck it on Instagram, Twitter or in the comment section down below. Right. It's been a while. Shall we crack on with question number 1, which comes from YouTube. What are your expectations for Ferrari in 2021? We got to start off big. We got to start off with those spicy questions. With the new engine, can they bounce back to their 2019 form? Thank you, Jude, for your question. It's going to be a difficult ride for them. That's for sure. It's been a very disappointing 2020. The first season since 2016, right? They didn't have a victory. Leclerc, a second place in the first race of the season. The highlight, really, for the team over the course of the year. A third place as well for Leclerc at Silverstone. And also Sebastian Vettel picking up what would be his final ever podium for the Scuderia in Turkey. Sixth in the constructors' standings after finishing comfortably second last season. And I think we're all aware those big misfortunes really coming down to that engine. The secret arrangement, secret agreement between them and the FIA will never quite understand actually what was so wrong with their engine, but we can very much imply that something wasn't quite right and Ferrari were being a little bit naughty. What are my expectations for them next season? Well, they're keeping Leclerc. That's their golden boy, and I think their most promising asset. So that's big thumbs up from me. Bringing in Carlos Sainz, I think that's definitely an upgrade on the current form of Sebastian Vettel. But having that experience of Vettel, that World Championship winning experience, don't underestimate that. But I think having a guy like Sainz, who's in form, who's still quite young, got plenty of time to stay at the team, I think it's going to really rejuvenate them and give them a bit more of a push for next season. But obviously, it's all going to come down to the pace of the car. And in the question, it's all going to be about that engine. They have said multiple reports they've got a brand new fresh engine for next year, but it's going to need to be a good one. Because even the chassis this season wasn't fantastic. That engine in 2019 was brilliant, illegal, but brilliant. They're going to need something equally as brilliant, and making that kind of step from season to season, I think it's a little bit unrealistic to suggest they could fight for the title, more than unrealistic to suggest that, but I think they'll be in the mix for best of the rest. When you consider how far away they were from the likes of Renault and McLaren at the end of the season, put Carlos Sainz in that car, that's the other driver's points going up massively in replacement of Sebastian Vettel. So I think there's positives there. I think also with Aston Martin, Seb and Stroll, how is that relationship going to work? Is Vettel going to be able to refine that form? Or are we going to see a similar story of this year? So Aston Martin can slip backwards. McLaren, we're going to talk about them a little bit later on. Moving to Mercedes power next year, how much of an effect is that going to have? Positive or negative? And obviously that return of Fernando Alonso at Renault. Is it going to be the dream return, or is it going to be a struggle? Another team going to rely on Ocon? All of these things we don't know, but I think for Ferrari, it's going to be a much slicker operation next year. Maybe I'm thinking too much, but I feel this season, operationally, they've been better in terms of strategy, but certainly the way they froze out Sebastian Vettel is not how you should treat a driver. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. But it's going to be a mighty challenge to get back up to the likes of Red Bull and certainly the likes of Mercedes. Thank you, Jude, for your question. Question number 2 comes from Leon Cadelli. Also, a little add-on from Mohammed Irfan, because Leon asks, do you think Yuki Sonoda will be in the top 10 in the driver's standings next year? And Mohammed Irfan asked this question, I believe, a little bit after Leon asked his question, but I wanted to include it because they were so similar, but I think Mohammed goes into a little bit more detail. As many before Yuki Sonoda that impress in Formula 2, but fail badly in Formula 1. I fear he might be one of those drivers Red Bull rushed into the AlphaTauri seat. Going against Pierre and hoping to come close to him in the middle of the season and score points is too much of an expectation on a rookie. I fear he might not be another victim of the Red Bull system. Your thoughts on this? So that's Mohammed's question there. I'm really excited to see Yuki Sonoda in Formula 1 next year. I think Mohamed's right. It's going to be a real challenge for him to prove himself. But I think as we've seen in Formula 2 this year, Yuki's a guy who's up for the challenge. He came into Formula 2 with not the best credentials. In Formula 3, picked up one victory near the end of his campaign in 2019. I thought he would struggle in Formula 2. I thought he was rushed into Formula 2. Boy, was I proven wrong pretty much from the off. And if you go from the Formula 2 standings just from the feature races, Yuki would have been champion. And I think his drives on a Saturday, on a Friday as well in qualifying, have been mesmerising at times. So I think he's got the potential to do great things at AlphaTauri. Up against Gasly is going to be a task, especially Pierre Gasly in the form of his life, which I'm hoping he can carry over from this season. But what I would say is, though he might not be able to beat Gasly, I do think he can get into the top 10. It's going to be a push. And again, building off what I just said about Ferrari, there are so many different variables and all these different teams, so much change in that midfield. But if you look at the end of this season, more often than not, AlphaTauri seem to be the team building that momentum, making massive gains, moving into next season. And I don't know, the one team in that midfield fight I've got a really good gut feeling about for next year, it's AlphaTauri. I think if Gasly can continue these mega performances, if Sonoda can be on the level of Danny Kvyat, maybe even a little bit better, Red Bull obviously think he's capable of doing that because they've put him in the car before he's won the Formula 2 championship. I think they've got a really good chance next year. Maybe third's a little bit much, but certainly much more in the mix for that best of the rest title. Of course, at the beginning of this season, they were going out in Q1, so to get both cars through to Q3 in several occasions, was it 4 out of the last 5 Grand Prix? That's mega for a team like AlphaTauri, so I've got a really good feeling about them. And I think Sonoda could be on the edge, maybe just outside, but a couple of big results, as we saw this year in the midfield, can go a long way. So certainly, it's possible for the Japanese driver. Mr. Fox 6000 asks, question number 3. Looking at how many failed engines the unbeatable team has had, do you think Mercedes could be beaten by Red Bull or Aston Martin next season? P.S. The unbeatable team is Mercedes. Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Fox. But I'm going to go with the simple answer on this one. And I don't think it's going to have a big effect. I think actually this year, once again, Mercedes have proved they've got the most reliable engine. However, across the board, reliability seems to have been so much better in 2020 compared to 2019. I would imagine that's because we only had 17 Grand Prix. We still had 3 engines. We saw Sergio Perez's engine conk out at the end of the season in the last race in Abu Dhabi. Also, we saw a similar thing in Bahrain, didn't we? But even Abu Dhabi, I believe that was the gearbox and not the Mercedes power engine. So, overall, I don't think that's going to be a big worry for Mercedes. Red Bull, Honda hasn't been fantastic this year, but I think it's been a step up once again. And Aston Martin, like you said in your question, already used Mercedes power engine. So I don't think they're going to be able to really make massive gains on Mercedes due to reliability. What I would say though, and I mentioned earlier I wanted to come back to this, was McLaren. Obviously moving to that Mercedes engine, hopefully for them, is going to be a fantastic change for the good. Hopefully it will give them an engine that's more reliable compared to that Renault, better straight line speed, better overall performance. The big issue for them though, is how it fits in that car. And we saw with Honda, didn't we? A few years ago, 2017, 2016, goodness me, they were some difficult seasons for the team. The big reason that car was so unreliable is the team failed to get that engine nicely settled into that car properly. With Mercedes coming into the car next year, I think certainly McLaren will be more accommodating than they were with Honda. The difficulty is, we've got a freeze of regulations, so the majority of these cars next year are going to be the exact same as the cars this year. How much of a change is that going to be? We're not going to know. Only the engineers at McLaren and at Mercedes are really going to have a better picture of how much that's going to affect the team. But don't underestimate that change. There could certainly be benefits, but all it would need is a slight overheating of a tiny component on the engine, a slight rubbing in the wrong place. Reliability could be all over the place for McLaren next year. So I'm not mega optimistic about the move straight away. Certainly 2022, 23 down the line, fantastic. But next year, I think it won't all be sunshine and rainbows for McLaren. However, from a reliability standpoint of the Mercedes power unit, I think they'll be fine. And I think Mercedes as the team will remain unbeatable for next year. Maybe not race to race, but in the championship, certainly the team to beat. Up next, question number 4 comes from Glenn Robertson. What Formula E driver has made the best move for the coming season? Verline to Porsche, Sims to Mahindra, maybe. Thank you, Glenn, for your question. As always, there's been plenty. The majority of teams switching up their driver lineup. Off the top of my head, the 2 staying the same to Cheetah with Da Costa and Verne, and also Mercedes with Van Dorn and De Vries. Both fantastic lineups. As you mentioned, Pascal Wehrlein. I think many of you know I love Pascal, but he's really failed to get that consistency and really show that star potential in Formula E. I think Porsche is a great move for him. And I think for the team, a big upgrade on Neil Jani, who really struggled to adapt to Formula E last season. Sims to Mahindra, I think that's a really good signing for them. Alongside Alex Lynn, I think that's, again, that consistency that they're looking for. We've got the likes of Jake Dennis moving to BMW, bit of an unknown quantity. I really like the look of Sergio Sette Camara moving to Dragon. I think that's exactly what the Penske team need. Someone with a bit of potential from Formula 2. Nick Cassidy moving to Virgin from Japanese Super Formula. That's going to be a really fun transition. I look straight away though. The one that stands out to me, Sam Bird to Jaguar. Mr. Consistent in Formula E. A real statement of intent from Jaguar. And for Sam to leave a team that he's been with since day one, the only driver to win in every single season, that's a big risk, a big change. But I think Jaguar, probably alongside Techeetah and Mercedes, have the best lineups in Formula E. I'm a little bit disappointed there's not a couple of these Formula 1 guys, Grosjean, Magnussen, Danny Kvyat, that haven't, even Hulkenberg as well, thinking about it, that haven't quite had a look into Formula E this season, but fingers crossed over the next couple of years, a couple of these guys will move over to Formula E. Just thinking as well, Nissan, sticking with Buemi and Ollie Rowland, that's a really strong lineup too. Maybe a seat for Alex Albon in the next couple of years. We'll have to wait and see. And finally, before we go, question 5, our audience participation question. It's the question I flip back to you guys. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And it's a bit of a hybrid question because we got a question from Ross Boss and many of you in the comment section down below and over the last couple of weeks since the move, the name change to Racing Reviews. So many talking about this. Now the Racing Reviews chapter has finally begun. Are you planning on expanding content into more motorsports? And Ross asks, how do you feel about NASCAR going from a 2 to a 7 road course, including Indy and COTA? I've included Ross's question, mainly because it proves why I'm not planning on expanding that much more, because I don't have a clue about NASCAR going from 2 to 7 road courses, and I don't really know what kind of effect that's going to have on the championship. What I would say though is never say never in expanding into more motorsports. I love Formula 1, Formula E, Formula 2, and I think next year, with the changes Formula 1 is doing to its support series, maybe we'll start including Formula 3 and W Series because they're all going to be within that Formula 1 bubble. I enjoy IndyCar, I enjoy NASCAR when I watch it. I always say NASCAR. I know there's a lot of debate about how you say it. Maybe that will wind people up. I've always enjoyed them, but I'm certainly no specialist to be able to make content on it. But then on the flip side, maybe that could be a fun avenue to have going down the line in the future. Maybe we get a specialist on. Maybe we get one of you guys as the lead and you teach me. So again, never say never. Currently, I want to kind of keep things as they are. I've said to a few people in comment section, I really want to explore the idea of doing a podcast. That seems to be the big thing people want at the moment. But as I've said many times, I don't want to do it run of the mill. I don't want to do it the same as everyone else because that's boring. I want to try my best to push the boat out there and make something that's actually worth listening to. So that's my plans. However, just spitballing here now, maybe it could be fun doing race reviews for things like the Indy 500, like the Le Mans 24 Hour, maybe testing things. I don't know, but I've done this as audience participation because I would love to know your thoughts. I'm sure many of you that have made it this far have been with the channel quite some time, so thank you very much for sticking around, but this is something I would really like to hear from you guys. No suggestion is stupid, even if it's the Mandalorian breakdowns each week. What a crazy episode that was today. Tears were flowing, ladies and gents, crikey. No spoilers, do not worry. But I don't know, nothing's too stupid. I'd love to know your thoughts, and I'll leave that there because this is a very long return for the weekly mailbox. If you want to leave a question for next week, comment section down below, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.